Hi, it's Sunday afternoon, and it's the first reasonably guaranteed rain-free day for some time. It's blowy but dry, and there's a hint of sun. So I'm going to do something that I haven't done for some time, which is a longish countryside walk. I'm not far from Wolvercote, roughly where I started the Wolvercote horticultural show video in June, and I'm going to walk along the canal to Wolvercote and then through Wolvercote and Wytham and down towards the Botley Road, passing on the way through the lost village of Seacourt. So let me go along the canal towpath to Wolvercote first. Those, I think, are Wolvercote allotments, and that's one of the roads, possibly St. Peter's Road. And there, not too far, is the bridge that crosses to the green space near the plough. there's the plough, and it looks like a nice family afternoon. I'm tempted to join them, but drunk in charge of a YouTube is a serious offence. And there are some haystacks. Pub is recommended, and it has good parking. Serves coffee and tea if you don't want something alcoholic. Now I'm coming up the row of houses that lead towards the village hall. And there's the wild meadow. Last time I videoed this was late June, I think, so there'll be signs of the seasons changing. That is the village hall. I'm now going west, and I've got Port Meadow on my left, and up ahead of me is Lower Wolvercote with the shop and a pub called the White Hart, a community pub. And then there are some houses that back onto Port Meadow. There's Godstone Nunnery, there's the Trout, Inspector Morse pub, and then a bit further on there's the village of Wytham, and then there's a turning that takes me roughly south back to the Botley Road and through the lost village of Seacourt. That's the canal. Be going roughly in that direction eventually. And there's a massive wind, which you can probably hear coming over from the southwest. I had to stop and adjust one of the homemade wind baffles that I made, so apologies for both disturbances to the picture and to the sound. This is the main road through Lower Wolvercote. chalk up another one for Oxford's collection of abandoned shops. That's the White Hart Community Pub. Looks as though it's open. The big pain about living in Wolvercote is that when the wind is in this direction, you get a lot of noise from the western bypass. British traffic planners have always felt that people should learn to live with noise rather than asking them to reduce it. Fairly mixed collection of housing types here. Now, I have to say that after doing George Street yesterday, this is quite a relief. Much more manageable dimensions. No huge blank walls of cinemas or theatres. And even those which are or were council flats look a bit more human than most of what's on George Street. And of course, we have the occasional one of those. That's a little path that runs just on the north side of Port Meadow. There is at least one gate that goes in that direction onto the meadow. Wolvercote Common, I think it's called here. I can't remember which stream that is. Nasty sort of dog in the manger attitude there. The university holding on to land that it isn't using for anything but won't let anybody else use. I'm now leaving Wolvercote. And I'm coming up to the Trout pub. I'm not sure where that goes. I never thought to find out before. That's the Trout. Right, anyone recognise these? This is the Wolvercote apple orchard, and I believe it's got at least 20 varieties of apple. Come October the 4th or thereabouts, they'll have an apple day, which mainly involves selling just about everything to do with apples, and they'll probably have a longest peel competition where people compete to see who can get the longest piece of peel off an apple without breaking it all in one piece, that is. So Wolvercote apple orchard, and Apple Day will be advertised. No, it's not. There's a map of the apple trees, lots of different varieties there. Labelled, and there's some blurb about it there. So that's Wolvercote apple orchard. That's the Trout. I did that in one of my early videos. I'm standing on the humpback bridge, which the drivers tend not to like. Isn't that peaceful? That would make a lovely scene on a TV series. In fact, it already has. Another hazard of doing this, it's not enough that you get bikes streaming past and sideswiping you, it's people's dogs turning up and licking unexpected parts of your anatomy while you're looking into your screen. Well, And wow, again, so this is Godstow, and this is Godstow Nunnery. Incidentally, I read recently that when Shakespeare wrote "Get thee to a nunnery," it was actually a joke, and the word meant brothel. I'm sure there was none of that here, though. There were brothel barges or brothel narrowboats on the canal, though, round about wartime and after. I saw a play done about them once by a local theatre group at the Wolvercote Summer Festival. An entirely different type of narrowboat, which is made for kids, as it were, to use YouTube terminology, is Muddy Waters. I guess everybody watching me knows Thomas the Tank Engine, the famous children's series, books originally about engines, animated engines. Well, Muddy Waters is sort of the same, but with narrowboats. And it's written by a local author. I can't remember his name. I believe his books can be bought through the Plough. They normally have a stack on the bar. But I'm sure looking up Muddy Waters children's books, or Muddy Waters children's books Wolvercote, will find them. They make a nice change. And I'm now wending my way towards Wytham along this road. There's not very much wending actually, it's pretty straight. There's a little lowered footpath down there, but it's quite overgrown, so I'm going to risk the edge of the road instead. This bit might be... This bit's on a sort of walkway, which is easier. Ooh, ah. And here is Wytham. Now, I'm not sure, but I think this is the Seacourt stream, also known as the Wytham stream or the Hinksey stream. And if it's a Seacourt stream, I'll probably meet it again further south. Under the guise of the Hinksey stream, I've already met it once by the Garden of the Fishes in North Hinksey. And Wytham is quite a way out by itself. It's cut off by the bus authorities. I think it used to have a bus service in the days of bus nationalisation. And I think more recently there was sort of stupid service that came 2 days a week or something like that. I'm not sure what happens now. It has a pub called the White Hart, not to be confused with the White Hart in Wolvercote, and it has a village shop which from time to time sells local honey made in the woods somewhere around here, a few beehives. And I've been to a birthday party courtesy of somebody who once hired the village hall for it. And that was a nice occasion. It was in the middle of summer, so it was pretty light up to about 9 o'clock or so. But at the moment I'm just passing through in order to find Seacourt. Well, I'm not quite sure what that says about the White Hart. Looks dead, which is a shame. A village like this needs a pub. It doesn't really have anything else. Oh, and there's a sort of mini Wytham History Museum in the back. I'll come and look at that one day. First World War monument. Right. As you saw, Wytham is only 5 minutes walk or so from Wolvercote, and buses go to Wolvercote, so if you don't have a car, it's still easy to get there. Now, this is a fairly quiet road, but I do have to be a bit careful about blind corners. Now, while I don't have to pay too much attention to the road, I'll talk about Wytham Wood. That is part of Wytham Wood, running along on the right, and it used to be owned, I think, by Abingdon Abbey, Abingdon being a town round about 6 miles from Oxford. And then I believe in 1942 the university, Oxford University, took it over. It's been designated a site of special scientific interest, and it's been used for a large amount of nature-related data collection. Apparently it has over 900 species of beetle, 580 species of fly, and 200 species of spider, and 27 of earthworms. And data on birds has been collected for more than 60 years, badgers more than 30, and climate change more than 18. It's a big space, it's about 1,000 acres. You can't just go and walk in it. You do need to get a permit from the university. And there's a Wytham Woods website which tells you more about the history, the biology, and how to get permits. You can walk around the edges of it. There's a footpath that goes round the outside. In fact, I think the path to it, it's either past Wytham Village Hall, or it's past the White Hart. I have done this, but it was some time ago. If you go up there, you get to the edge of the wood, and you can then sort of go right and turn left and carry straight on for a few miles, and eventually you come to Aynsham, which is, well, actually you don't come to Aynsham straight away. The first thing you come to is Swinford Toll Bridge, which is interesting in its own right. It's a toll bridge that is still functioning and that still has to stop every driver that goes over it and collects money from them. And then if you walk along a bit from Swinford Toll Bridge, you get to Aynsham. And if you don't like walking all the way back again, there are buses from Aynsham to Oxford and other places. Aynsham's quite attractive in its own right. It's got a nice church and some decent cafes. So, to recap, I'm now walking towards Botley. I've come out of Wytham and I'm converging with the Western Bypass, which you'll begin to be able to hear again. It's over there. And on the other side of it is a stretch of the land that further north contained Godstow Nunnery and that contains the perch, and that eventually leads to the west bank of the Thames, and you can see Port Meadow from it. Once upon a time, the Western Bypass was lightly enough used that you could just about risk running across it, climbing a fence and getting into the land that I've just mentioned. But I wouldn't try that now. Quite big skies, that's what it looks like to the right of where I've come from. Now, this walk, I don't like winter, but it does have one advantage, which is visibility. Most of the trees are devoid of leaves, which means it's easier to see into the distance. And the reason I say that is that I want to try to line myself up with Binsey, which is another village. Again, it's only a few houses on the way to the perch. Because that will give me a reference point for the lost village of Seacourt. And the lost village of Seacourt is partly under the Western Bypass, unfortunately. And there are some bits sticking out to either side. There's more on either side than there is under the bypass, so at least something has been left. And I suppose it's notable because there's from here, from the ground, there's just nothing left that you can see of it. It used to be I suppose you'd call it a hamlet now, which had possibly just one street or one main street which went roughly in the same direction as the bypass. In fact, one of the archaeological references I read said that the bypass was actually constructed over the street. Another seems to imply that the bypass lies slightly to one side of it. And the data records spaces for 9 houses, at least 9 houses, what are technically called house platforms, varying in area from 10 square, I think it's 10 square metres to 40 square metres. And what went on was almost entirely agricultural. It started becoming depopulated probably in the 1300s, say from 1350 onwards. And the village had a church as well as its houses. The last incumbent, the last priest or vicar, I'm not sure how you match up contemporary terms with what they had then, was recorded in records from the early 1400s. And there's a record saying that the church was collapsed by 1439 and that there were only 2 houses remaining. Unlike some villages, there doesn't seem to have been anything sinister about the collapse, the depopulation. It's just that Oxford was nearby. It was growing rapidly, and the rise in size and prosperity of Oxford meant that people moved out of the village. The earliest reference to Seacourt is in a charter from 957, and I'll get back to that in a minute. It's possible that there were people living there or living around the area anyway by the 10th century. Certainly by the 11th there were buildings at first of wood and then later of stone. One reference says that there were several streets, and that the biggest ran roughly north-south to the west of the western bypass, which is that. So you know roughly how far east-west Seacourt was, and I'm trying to find out roughly how far north-south it is was from where I am now. The name is interesting. The earliest written record of the name, I'm going to spell it, it's Seofecany. Sorry, SeofecanyWyrthe. And the Sef part apparently means sedge or rush. As ever round here, the land was very marshy and ditches were used as boundaries. And the Wytham probably means farm. The Fecan, according to the reference, is not part of the name. It seems that the inhabitants, or whoever wrote this, had a habit of putting naughty words in the middle of names. So it translates as Seofecany Wytham, where Fecan is apparently a naughty word used as a derogatory reference to the Danes who'd lived there. So Seth means sedge or rush, and Rötha means farm. And you have to read what I said earlier as Seo Fecken Rötha. Okay, well, that's the Western Bypass. That's an approach road to it. That's the road I've just come from. And this takes me the rest of the way to Botley. I'd hoped that from here I could look across and line up with Binsey. Seacourt was roughly the same distance north-south as Binsey, as I said, and that would enable me to locate it in both directions, but I'd forgotten about the trees. I don't think I'm going to be able to see across. But if you imagine it from the other side, go to the perch and then look west and then intersect your line of sight with the Western Bypass, that's roughly where Seacourt was. And as for size, well, as I say, it had at least 9 houses. I guess it was laid out somewhat like Wytham. That seems to me a pretty suitable model for a small village. What people never tell you, because ultimately, how can we know, is what was life like? What was it like to live in a declining village, in a village where everybody was moving away? Did it seem like a great adventure for people to go to Oxford? Did they just link up with other members of their extended family who'd been there maybe for a generation or two already? Well, that's rather sweet. Wild sweet peas. Now, I'm not sure, but looking at the line of trees over there and visualising the map, I think I may be approaching Seacourt now. I think it may be just ahead. And it probably wasn't any longer than Wytham. So if I imagine this being the start of Seacourt, then maybe it goes on to the bend in the road that car is about to go round.
see there. Do you see the spire pointing above the trees? That's that building is popularly known as Seacourt Cathedral because of the spire. The name survives in that name and the name of a pub and the name of the stream and maybe one or two others. And I am shortly going to hit an exit to the left, which will take me out onto a track that goes down to the Botley Road. The main problem will be working out which bit of Spaghetti Junction bridge I have to cross in order to get there safely. That's Botley Lodge, which is an entrance point to Wytham Woods, there on the right. That's the land on the other side of the bypass.
that is the modern Botley. That's the Westway development in the distance. That is Seacourt Cathedral. The Jewel of Botley. Now I'm approaching a little track that will, thank God, take me away from the western bypass. And if it weren't for the bypass, it's sort of nice and peaceful here, like a similar track off Barracks Lane when I did the Marshall Road video. And if the whole of the neighbourhood had this feel, it would be a good place to live in, and indeed to go to school. Okay, and I've come out in this part of Oxford before. That's the Westway, and that is the original 1930s shopping arcade there, Elms Parade. So that's it. I've been through Wolvercote, Wytham and the lost village of Seacourt, and I'm on the Botley Road. I'll see you next time.